What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the MG YouTube channel. I'm Malcolm Grubb, CEO of Elite Automation, Elite Properties, and an investor in Tesla. So, if you don't know already, Robo Taxi has expanded in Austin, Texas. And obviously, that's a really big deal. It's one of the huge catalysts that I've been talking about as far as Robo Taxi having a meaningful impact on like the stock price. And there's also just a few other catalysts that need to happen in order to really start getting that parabolic stock price increase, meaning we can go from sitting at like $300 roughly a share, $310 a share, up to like hundreds of thousands, or not hundreds of, sorry, up to like $500 a share. Sorry, my mind went somewhere else for a second. But yeah, so we can go from being at $310 a share to potentially like $500 a share within like the next. It could happen in months. It could be months, the next 6 months, could be a year, right? But even over the course of the next few months, that transition might start to happen where, we hit past 360, we break past 360, and we go back into the 400s. Because at one point in time, we were at 420. So being that Tesla was at 420 at one point in time, that means just with what we're currently sitting with, we have the potential to at least go back up to that 420. Like, the market has granted Tesla a price of 420 at one point in time, and that was with just a notion that robotaxi could be a thing, and that robotaxi was getting closer, and that Elon and Trump were friends and whatnot, and Elon was involved in politics at that point, and basically would have the president to back him up. So that was like one of the big reasons why we hit that 420 price. And since then, we've dropped all the way into like the 280s. But again, we're back up to like 310. So, again, it just shows that 420, and the reason why the reason why like the being part of their presidency and all that was so important is because of what it would do for the business, what it would do for robotaxi and the ability to expand robotaxi, because we didn't we weren't sure regulatory wise if robotaxi would be able to be expanded, how quickly it's going to be expanded. And it's already been mentioned that the Department of Transportation is basically federally wanting to allow for autonomy on a similar platform across the entire country. So it wouldn't be on like a state-to-state basis. It would be it'd be across the country, which it's much better for Tesla or any autonomous driver. Then it's kind of up to their discretion as far as if it's safe enough, or it's up to the discretion of whatever limitations the government puts there. So once you get a pass, it'd be like similar, like the same way that Tesla has a pass in Austin, Texas. They would then have a pass for the entire country, right? Because you're already capable to do it there. And then it's up to Tesla or whatever other company it is to do their own due diligence and verification and validation to ensure that it's safe enough, because they're still going to carry the liability of the robotaxi service and anybody potentially dying in the service and things like that. So all those liabilities will be under the company. So, they're still going to have to be internally be extremely safe when it comes to like deployment and making sure that it's technologically ready and whatnot. Like, for example, like Waymo has to train every single city that they go into, and they have to like high resolution map the city, and they have to do so for like weeks and weeks at a time or months at a time before they're even ready to deploy in that city. Whereas with this expansion, at least from what we know, essentially Tesla was able to expand in a couple of weeks. Now, there is a plausibility that they've been doing what they're doing right now for some extended period of time, and maybe they're kind of maybe they kind of consolidated the first initial area they just launched a couple weeks ago. They consolidated on that area and really mapped that one out harder. And then once they released that one to the public, then they went to this new area, started scanning it hardcore, and then they released that to the public. And so now they're potentially moved on to another new area. They could still potentially be trying to refine maybe some things in those areas before moving on to another area, but I would assume what's going to happen is we're going to start seeing some updates of them moving on to another area. So yeah, I just think it's highly likely that they are going to move on to another area, and or they have already moved on to another area in Austin. And I think Tesla needs to continue that approach of continually expanding and growing out um, that service in the city as much as possible. Even if they go on to another city, I don't think they should abandon the expansion of that city. Because see, Waymo has almost done like an abandon the city and move on to another city. So like Waymo opens up its area, and then it may not open up its area again for 3 months, 6 months, how many ever months it may be, right? And uh, and so there's no rapid expansion once they kind of like move on to the next city. And so that's one big advantage that Tesla has. And so that was the major thing that was so important about this weekend and this new expansion of a new geofenced area, is that they're showing continual growth in that area, and they're doing so very, very rapidly. So we just went from like 2 weeks of time, and we've already expanded the geofence area. If we can go another 2 weeks of time, and they can expand that geofence area again, and then we can go like even another 2 weeks of time, or even if we say 4 weeks of time, and we, let's say, expand the number of vehicles, which I think they already expanded the number of vehicles to up to 50 vehicles now. Somewhere between 40 to 50 vehicles. Now, I need to do a little bit more research. Follow me on X and stuff, because I'll post things that are like more up to date and more data driven there. But you know, if they can grow that more, grow the number of vehicles more, and also if they can reach a point where they pull the safety rider out. If they pull the safety rider out, now it starts to become just a viable business in that area. You know, like there's like I think Waymo did like $250 million in revenue for the rides that they've given out this past year. And so it's not a meaningless amount of money that Tesla's going to be able to produce. And even being just in Austin, you know, Austin I think has 200 Waymos, if I'm not mistaken, like 255 Waymos in Austin. It would be very easy for Robo Taxi to have 500 plus in Austin, Texas. You know, basically it'll be able to service the need of everybody in that area, and if they're coming in at a low enough price point, then they're going to beat everybody, like not even just Waymo stuff, but like Ubers and Lyft and all those things. Because when people are, you know, Ubers and Lyfts and stuff like that are pretty much commoditized, in the sense of you basically just use whatever's fastest, cheapest. I mean, that's really it, right? Whatever's fastest and cheapest. And based on that, you make your decision. When I go to cities, I open up both apps. I see, you know, how long each one's going to be, what's the cost of each one, and then that's the one I use, you know? Unless for some reason, like I want to do like an XL SUV or something like that. Maybe then I'll choose Uber versus like Lyft or something. Maybe I want some type of luxury option or something for that particular ride. But again, like, you know, that's not necessarily the demographic that Tesla's looking to hit at this moment. I think that once Robo Taxi becomes more full-fledged, they start expanding into other cities and they generate revenue. Once that business starts fledging out, then what's going to happen is they will have, they'll start expanding their vehicles. I think they'll have other, you know, luxury vehicles. Again, I really want Tesla just in general to come out with a full-size true SUV. I want a Lincoln Navigator XL. I want a, you know, a Yukon XL. Give me the big SUV. I don't care what the range is. I don't care what the efficiency is. Just give it to me, right? I think they could use like the Cybertruck platform, and then just basically, you know, the Cyber SUV would be perfect. Like literally, if they just did the same with all other SUVs. Like if you look at like a Ford Expedition is basically the like F-150. Just with the SUV. I mean, if you look at the old school Ford Excursion, which is one of the vehicles that we own an Expedition and a Lincoln too, by the way, but the Ford Excursion is like F-250 or F-350, just converted into an SUV. So, you know, it'd be really cool if the Cybertruck, they did the same thing with that. They just made a Cyber SUV. Numbers are not good right now on the Cybertruck, so maybe they need to go with a more traditional style SUV. I think they also need to come out with a regular truck. They need to name it the regular truck, and and basically the regular truck be more similar to a regular truck. So if you want the Cybertruck, if you want something new and innovative, get that. If you want something more traditional, like we currently have, then get that. There's no reason to not have that. Have a similar platform to your Model Y or something like that. Just like enlarge a lot of the things. Like you can have still have the same like headlights and stuff on it or something like that. That way they can like reuse some of the parts. Or one thing that'd be even super sicker is use the semi, like downsize the semi into a truck, right? So and then just make a regular pickup truck out of that. Now again, like the platform and everything wouldn't match up, but I'm just saying like maybe like headlights, you could use the same headlights and just to try to keep the same supply chain. I'm getting off on a different rant and whatnot, but that's kind of basically how Robo Taxi, as it starts to build out like full-fledgedly, so we're talking like 3 to 5 years out probably, they'll start to look at more different vehicle types. Do we want to have like a big van like the Robovan? That was one of the things they launched, and it's still in their line card of items that they have to roll out. So I think it's highly plausible they're actually going to do that vehicle. Whenever they showcased it, it definitely seemed like one they would not have showcased, or that they would not have actually came out with. It would have just been like a prototype. There's a lot of vehicles that come out as like prototypes and they just die off and they never make them, right? And that's how the Robovan really seemed like it would be, is a product that would just kind of die off. Now I do think it's also a 3 to 5 year product that's out, but then again, like maybe they start making some and deploying them into like the cities that like Austin, Texas, where there's like a bus style Robo Taxi where it's even lower cost basis, and maybe they stay on like a similar like a bus route type of situation where they have like common stops. And also maybe like this is one thing that's really cool that's not in the current bus system that I think you can get out of like a Robovan or a Robo bus, is autonomous bus, is you can do like ride hailing on a bus network, meaning either there's a loop and then you hail the vehicle, or like it has a generalized loop and you can hail the vehicle. So like right now, like the bus kind of stops at every station. Maybe if they don't see somebody, they don't stop there. But same concept, you would still hail the vehicle like through the RoboTaxi app, and then you would then the bus would either just if nobody had held it for that hotspot for that pickup location, it would just bypass it, right? And also, like for example, you can't see, but like there's a bus station right over here, right? There's a bus station right over here. Well, like let's say for instance that's the normal hotspot pickup, but you could also like your house is like inside, like near to the loop, and so what it would do is it would actually roll up to your house and pick you up, but it's like still part of a loop. So you'd have to like live inside one of the inner loop systems, but the bus could basically deviate on that loop by some certain amount, and it would basically tell you like the bus will be in loop at a certain time. I'm trying to like bring this from my mind, like the visualization I'm seeing in my mind for you to understand. But basically, you would have to stand exactly at the bus station. You could actually still stay at your house as long as your house was like near to one of the loops. And then it would have to have some similar timed type of thing where, between certain times, it always kind of stops by that area. So that way the bus, instead of just being in one square loop, I'm just going to call it like a square loop, it could actually zigzag a little bit more and come off this road, go back onto that road. And so it's more similar to how you would think like when a church bus comes to pick up people, right? Church buses generally go right to people's houses and pick people up, or something more similar to like a school bus maybe. They do a little bit more zigzagging through like streets and stuff like that to pick up kids and stuff from school, versus like buses stay on like more of the main loop, and you might have to walk 2 blocks, 5 blocks. I mean, no telling how many blocks you have to walk just to get to a bus station. They're generally placed periodically, but they're not always the most convenient. They're definitely not as convenient as showing up at your front door and being able to get out and get in it. So it'd be like the same concept as a Robo Taxi. Just the big difference is it'd be like a ride share with like 8 other people that would be in the vehicle with you, and would just kind of like reduce the cost per mile. And then you got to stay on the loop. If you needed to go to like some other area, it might be the last stop on the loop. you know? So like maybe going to work, it takes you a long time to get off on that loop and stop at that last location, but on the way home, like you're like the first stop on the loop. You know what I mean? And then you can just have multiple loops in your city for different bus routes, basically. And so, like, again, that's just like a way to drive down the cost of transportation for everybody. I think that would be the most, that'd be the biggest use case for the Robovan. And I say that primarily because the Robovan was pretty big. It was definitely more of like a bus, like a miniature bus, right? So your loops would also probably be a little bit smaller as well, or not necessarily smaller, but maybe you'd also have multiple buses on that same route, the same way you do with like trams or something like that. So it's not necessarily just one tram that runs around all the time, but you have like multiple trams that are kind of like, you know, well, how do you call it? Like a 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock from each other. So that way they're like, you know, it decreases your pickup time by half the amount of time. So they could have something like that, but definitely it was not like it didn't look like a consumer level vehicle. It definitely looked more like a commercial vehicle. Now, could a consumer buy it? Probably. But I also think, I mean, unless they make it extremely cheap, I think no matter what, you're still looking at a $120,000 plus vehicle, maybe $200,000 vehicle, being a commercial level vehicle. Now, at the $100-something,000, if I could still like Robo Taxi it and Robo Taxi was available in my area, I'd probably buy one because I have 6 kids, so we're already at 8 whenever just our household is in the car, at least when we have all the kids. But that doesn't include, now they're getting older and they have friends and stuff like that, so it immediately goes to like 10, or if there's a sleepover or something like that, we're already defaulting to drive in multiple vehicles, and not only multiple vehicles, but almost need like third row seating vehicles immediately. But yeah, that was definitely like kind of a rant and a whole nother thing, almost like a whole nother video topic on like the bus and everything like that. But I'm just kind of like brainstorming like the future of like Robo Taxi and how, like, you know, autonomy with vehicles might look into the future. Again, Tesla, if anybody from Tesla's watching this video, please push and drive for them to come out with the full-sized SUV. Outside of a full-size SUV, I would take something like an NV, like a Nissan NV, like a 12-passenger or 15-passenger type of vehicle. Yeah, I would definitely be interested in one of those types of vehicles. I just need the multi-passenger vehicle thing, and like over like a priority over everything. But again, SUVs, I like them a lot more. I like the ability to tow with them and have a lot of people in the vehicle at the same time. So hopefully this video was valuable to you guys, and we'll catch you in the next one. Subscribe. Make sure you're subscribing if you're interested in content like this, business, entrepreneurial content, investing in Tesla technology and where it's at going with Robo Taxi and everything. Yep, subscribe and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.